When most people think of global alliances reshaping Asia, their minds jump to China and Russia, or perhaps the growing tensions between the United States and Iran. But quietly, purposefully, and with remarkable consistency, another alliance has been forming, less publicized, but no less consequential. It's the growing relationship between Israel and India, two nations that, on the surface, may seem culturally and geographically distinct, yet behind the scenes are forging one of the most strategic and influential partnerships in the region. This isn't about diplomacy dressed in headlines or handshakes on front pages. This is about defense, intelligence, and technology, domains where silence is strategy, and where the real work of reshaping the future often happens in the quiet. While their official diplomatic relations were only formalized in 1992, Israel and India have, in the last decade especially, cultivated a deep and pragmatic bond, one rooted in mutual respect, shared security concerns, and an unspoken understanding that strength in silence is sometimes more powerful than spectacle. What began as limited military trade agreements has now evolved into full-fledged cooperation across some of the most sensitive areas of national defense. From missile defense systems and drone surveillance to undercover intelligence operations and cyber defense protocols, these two nations are syncing their capabilities like gears in a well-engineered machine. India, with its sprawling population, vast borders, and complex regional rivalries, has long struggled to modernize its defense forces. Israel, though smaller in size, brings to the table cutting-edge military technology, hard-won battlefield experience, and a knack for rapid innovation. What makes this relationship work so efficiently is that both nations face relentless security threats, Israel from hostile neighbors and encroaching terrorist factions, India from insurgents along its borders and extremist threats within its own territory. The urgency they feel is similar, the stakes equally high. And so, over the years, Israel has become India's go, a partner for more than just weapons. It's who they call when they need agility and precision, intelligence support, or training in counter-terror tactics. The Iron Dome, Israel's air defense system that has intercepted thousands of incoming missiles, has inspired India's own defensive aspirations. Joint development projects, quietly signed and swiftly implemented, are equipping Indian forces with the next generation of unmanned aerial vehicles and anti-missile systems. Not years from now, but right now. But this isn't just about hardware, it's about alignment. Israel's Mossad and India's RAW, two of the world's most respected intelligence agencies, have increased collaboration over recent years, working together not only on shared regional threats, like radical Islamic terrorism, but on cyber intelligence networks that monitor, disrupt, and neutralize terror financing and digital warfare. They exchange techniques, methodologies, and analysis not for applause, but for survival. Terrorism does not respect borders, and these two ancient civilizations, battle, hardened and alert, have chosen to fight this war together. The transformation is quiet but deliberate, and the world is only beginning to notice. Just a few years ago, joint military drills between the two nations were rare. Today, cooperation in sky, sea, and cyber domains is a regular part of their defense calendars. India's special forces are trained in Israeli anti-terror techniques. Israeli security contractors are helping to shield Indian infrastructure. Even space, Based coordination for early warning systems is being discussed behind closed doors, out of view, yet already in motion. What's most fascinating is that this alliance has emerged without fanfare, not out of weakness, but design. Both nations understand the cost of alliances that lean on words more than results. What they're forging instead is something real, measurable, and durable. It's not just defensive, it's strategic. In a time when large treaties are announced with bold rhetoric and little follow through, this partnership prefers quiet effectiveness. That, perhaps, is its greatest strength. But there's more here than just efficiency or common interest. There is a philosophical bond as well. Both India and Israel are democracies operating in hostile neighborhoods. Both have endured colonialism, foreign threats, internal divisions, and economic struggles, and yet they've risen, each in their own way, not only to survive but to lead. That kind of shared experience does something to nations. They begin to understand that their path forward might just be stronger if walked together. For those watching global dynamics closely, it's clear. The reshaping of Asia is not only happening through the large, dramatic alliances broadcast on the world stage. Sometimes the most strategic pieces are moved in silence, and Israel and India are moving many of them. Not to dominate the world, but to secure a peace that will not come easily unless built through strength, wisdom, and partnership. Not every transformation comes with a roar. Some come with a whisper. When two nations find themselves surrounded by enemies, misunderstood on the global stage, and repeatedly targeted by extremists, violence, something more than policy, begins to bind them together. It becomes personal. That's precisely what's been happening between Israel and India. Beneath the surface of official agreements and trade deals is a deeper and far more urgent motivation driving these two nations into tight, discrete coordination: survival. Both have faced the scarring grip of terrorism, often with little international sympathy and even less support. And now, quietly but decisively, they are responding not just through words, but action, training, and intelligence sharing aimed at neutralizing threats others refuse to fully confront. Israel has lived under the shadow of terrorism since its founding. Surrounded by hostile neighbors and consistently threatened by extremist groups, the Israeli people have been forced to build one of the most effective counterterrorism and intelligence communities in the world just to exist. Every bus stop, every airport, every school has been shaped by that existential vigilance. It's not paranoia, it's preparation, and that preparation has saved lives. India, in its own way, has faced a parallel reality. From the Mumbai attacks in 2008 to dozens of cross-border insurgencies and homegrown militant operations, India has often been left to deal with the consequences of terrorism on its own. While global sympathy appears after each major attack, tangible assistance rarely follows. India knows what it means to grieve in silence, to mourn its citizens while the world moves on. That enduring experience has produced a hardened realism in Indian defense planning, one that now increasingly turns to partners who know what it's like to live on a constant state of alert. This is where Israel and India connect not simply on paper, but on principle. They don't philosophize about terrorism from afar. They've buried their dead, hardened their borders, and stood surrounded by global voices telling them to de-escalate, while rockets and gunmen breach their cities. And so, instead of waiting for international consensus to catch up with reality, they've chosen to work together. Quietly, strategically, intelligence sharing between the two nations has deepened over the last decade. Counterterrorism operatives have trained side by side. Israeli security experts have been deployed in India to help protect public spaces, airports, and even major event venues. There are reports unsurprising to those paying attention that Israel has aided in helping India trace terror funding, monitor extremist digital networks, and enhance real-time tactical responses. This is not window dressing, this is war room level cooperation quietly unfolding between two countries that understand time is a luxury they often don't have. What's extraordinary is how this cooperation has matured, not into a loud, dramatic alliance, but into a kind of silent brotherhood. The issues they face, from cross-border jihadist threats to the radicalization of youth online, are no longer isolated regional problems. They are transnational, technologically advanced, and increasingly evasive. And yet, both India and Israel have resisted the temptation to outsource their security to international bodies known more for political posturing than real response. Instead, they've said, we'll take care of our people first, and they've found allies in each other to make that happen. Much of this collaboration, of course, never makes major headlines. That's intentional. The security operations, the drone flights, the data being exchanged at command centers. It thrives in the shadows, far from public speeches and press conferences. But its effect is very real. In some cases, planned attacks have been thwarted. In others, militancy networks have been disrupted. What makes their cooperation effective, perhaps even revolutionary, is how practical it is. It isn't about red carpet. It's about intelligence cables, not grandstanding, but ground, level action, and the spiritual implications of this cannot be ignored. Two nations, one rooted in ancient Judaism, one deeply immersed in Hindu spiritual tradition, standing against evil not just with faith, but with resolve, not out of hatred, but out of a desire to protect. A.W.TOZER often spoke of a deep spiritual discernment that pierced through superficial words. He warned of a generation that would mistake pacifism for peace and tolerance for strength. What we see in India and Israel today is an embodiment of spiritual realism, an acknowledgement that in a fallen world, evil must sometimes be restrained before it can be reformed, that protection is part of love, make no mistake about it. This partnership is not built on vengeance. It's built on vigilance. And in their decision to defend their citizens not just in response to attacks, but through preemptive security planning and collaboration, these two nations are setting a precedent for others. They are proving that it's not only possible to resist radical aggression, but essential. That waiting for permission to act, to defend, to protect, often means waiting too long. The convergence of Israel and India in this area is not a brief alliance. It's a long-term shaping force within Asia and beyond. Their cooperation is redrawing the map not through conquest, but through resistance not against people, but against the terror ideologies that have taken too many lives and too much peace for far too long. Because when a nation has been wounded by terror, what it craves most isn't vengeance, it's security. When people think of Israel and India, they often picture two very different worlds: Israel, an innovative powerhouse in the Middle East with limited land but limitless ingenuity, and India, a vast, bustling democracy with overwhelming population, resources, and a rising global ambition. But something remarkable is happening. largely outside the gaze of international media. Beyond the defense deals and shared security strategies lies a third, quieter force binding these two nations together. A partnership of ideas, invention, and innovation that is forming what some are now calling Asia's next great technological axis. It begins with a simple truth: Israel knows how to innovate. Year after year, this tiny nation tops the charts in patents per capita, research and development intensity, and startup activity. Often called the startup nation, Israel has pioneered advancements in cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, agricultural tech, medical devices, and water conservation. What makes Israel unique is not just its technological prowess, but its need to be efficient, fast, and resilient. Surrounded by geopolitical challenges and natural resource limitations, Israel has learned to do more with less, and often faster than anyone else. India, on the other side, brings an entirely different strength to the table: scale. With a population of 4 billion, and a surging digital economy, India offers something Israel needs: reach, talent, and opportunity to scale technologies on a level few nations can offer. And over the past decade, these two countries have begun to link their strengths, creating one of the most quietly transformative partnerships in Asia. The fusion of Israel's innovation with India's scale isn't just a good idea, it's a game changer. Across sectors, this partnership is gaining speed. In agriculture, Israeli drip irrigation techniques and desert farming innovations are being deployed in Indian farmlands, particularly in drought-prone regions where millions depend on successful yields. What began as knowledge exchange has grown into full-scale collaborative projects, with Israeli agronomists working hand in hand with Indian farmers, government agencies, and universities to develop drought-resistant crops and maximize yield with minimal water. In a future overshadowed by climate fragility, this kind of collaboration doesn't simply help nations, it helps the world. In technology, hubs like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and Pune, Israeli startups are finding eager partners and massive markets. Joint ventures in artificial intelligence, digital health, fintech, and renewable energy are becoming increasingly common. Israeli entrepreneurs are tapping into India's incredible base of software engineers and IT talent, while Indian companies are leveraging Israel's innovation culture to upgrade their global competitiveness. These aren't just business deals, they are strategic movements that prepare both nations for leadership in the fourth industrial revolution. Cybersecurity is another shared frontier where the stakes could not be higher. Both nations face threats from state actors, terror networks, and criminal enterprises targeting digital infrastructure. It's no longer just about protecting borders. It's about protecting banks, data, energy systems, and medical networks from invisible attackers. Here, again, the cooperative model is showing enormous promise. India has adopted Israeli cybersecurity strategies across key sectors, while Israeli firms operate in Indian markets with growing trust and mutual benefit. This digital alliance may very well serve as the backbone of future geopolitical stability. And then there's space. Yes, space. India's space agency, ISRO, has earned global respect for low-cost, high-efficiency missions, while Israel's space tech, particularly in mini-satellites and space-based surveillance, represents some of the most advanced capabilities for their size. Joint discussions are already underway about how to merge precision with scale, agility with ambition. The sky is not the limit here, it's only the next frontier. What makes this alliance particularly compelling is that it's being built, not off global fanfare or massive political agreements, but off practical need and quiet trust. Israel and India don't just want to work together, they need each other. In a global environment increasingly fragile with power competition, tech nationalism, and rising economic insecurity, the two nations are modeling a very different kind of global partnership, one where innovation is not hoarded but shared, one where collaboration replaces competition, and one where success is measured not only by economic profit but by impact. But perhaps most significantly, behind all these inventions and institutions, there is also shared spiritual DNA. Israel, rooted in covenant and resilience, carries centuries of faithful innovation through adversity. India, ancient and diverse, pulses with an energy that is both mystical and practical, seeking to improve systems while navigating centuries of spiritual tradition. And when these two histories collide not in conflict, but in cooperation, what emerges is something unusually powerful, a partnership that not only offers solutions, but inspires something deeper. It speaks to the possibility that human ingenuity, guided by mutual respect and a desire for good, can transcend borders, religions, and even histories. As Tozer often said, when human efforts align with divine wisdom and purpose, the result is not just industry, it's transformation. The world may not see it yet, but from Tel Aviv to Bengaluru, something is stirring, something that just might illuminate the path forward in a weary, watching world. As we trace the growing partnership between Israel and India across military cooperation, counterterrorism, cutting-edge technology, and agriculture, a deeper question begins to surface. Is this merely a matter of politics and progress, a natural alliance of shared interests, or could something more be happening beneath the surface? To those of us who view history not just as a list of events, but as divinely shaped narrative, it's impossible to ignore the spiritual currents running through this relationship. A quiet alliance unfolding between two of the world's oldest civilizations may not simply be a diplomatic story, it may be a prophetic one. Both Israel and India are nations with profound spiritual foundations. Israel, of course, holds a singular place in the biblical narrative. God's chosen people, covenant bearers, a land marked by promise, conflict, and divine purpose. And India, though not part of the biblical canon, has always possessed a deep spiritual atmosphere, marked by longing, reverence, and the search for meaning. Both lands carry layers of history under every square foot. And now, as these two nations move closer in partnership, the cooperation goes far beyond trade or technology. In many ways, it's a convergence of destiny. A.W. Tozer often warned that many people can understand the times socially or economically, but only the spiritually minded can discern the movements of God through history. He reminded us that while earthly eyes see governments and headlines, spiritual eyes watch for patterns, alignments, and signs that something greater might be at work. Today, the quiet strengthening of ties between Israel and India might appear to the world as a clever geopolitical strategy. But for those who live with spiritual discernment, it may be a signal, a shift in the spiritual architecture of our age. What makes this alliance so unusual is that it is both modern and ancient. On one hand, Israel and India are investing in cutting-edge defense systems, AI, cybersecurity, and space technology. On the other hand, they are two civilizations rooted in texts, traditions, prayers, and ancient identities. In an age that runs from history, they lean into it, and that blend of high-tech cooperation and spiritual memory creates something unique. It's not simply global advancement, it's global realignment. In the biblical view, God often uses unlikely alliances and moments of quiet cooperation to shift the course of empires. He raised up Cyrus, a Persian king, to return the Jewish people to their land. He used Rome's infrastructure to carry the gospel across continents. Again and again, Scripture reminds us, just because something isn't loud doesn't mean it isn't divine. Sometimes it is the whisper that carries the weight. And in today's world, where everything must be instant and viral to be respected, we must not underestimate the sacred power of what is quiet, steady, and intentional. Israel and India's alignment may be part of a reshaping that includes far more than bullets or bandwidth. It may be preparing the stage for different global leadership in the years ahead, leadership less driven by Western dominance or Eastern authoritarianism, and more by nations that understand conflict because they've lived it, that understand spiritual history because they carry it in their identities. Nations that are willing to stand without asking who will applaud. That is the kind of strength God has repeatedly used to redirect history's river. We should not romanticize this alliance or assume its perfection. No government, no system, no earthly partnership is free from flaws or self-interest. But that doesn't mean God cannot use it. He has a long history of writing straight with crooked lines. The question is not whether Israel and India are pure actors, but whether they are available ones willing participants in a greater realignment that may just be setting the stage for future events none of us fully see yet. In the prophetic books, we are told to watch and pray, not just react. We are told to discern the signs of the times, not simply accept the status quo. And right now, the signs suggest something significant is in motion. Not in the noise of conflict, but in the strategy of peace. Not in headlines, but in boardrooms, laboratories, prayer rooms, and command centers. Two nations, ancient and tested, are slowly but surely forging one of the most compelling partnerships in modern history. For the discerning believer, this should ignite both hope and holy caution. Hope that God is still at work, shaping nations, raising up collaborative strength between cultures that were once distant. And caution, because whenever God moves, the enemy seeks to distort, derail, or divide. This alliance will be tested. It will face pressure, and its spiritual potential may only be realized if those watching with faith are willing to intercede, speak truth, and remain alert. Tozer taught us that the world desperately needs people who are fully awake, awake to the majesty of God, awake to the movement of His Spirit, and awake to the story He is still writing through kings, countries, and quiet partnerships. Because while everyone else watches the surface, the Spirit still moves in the deep.